Hey everyone, welcome back to the Meaningful People Podcast, episode 5. You're probably wondering, who did we get on this time? Well, you're not wondering because you saw the title. It's with the one and only Rabbi Yaakov Bender. How did you guys get Rabbi Bender on a podcast, you might be wondering? I don't know, but it was epic. Right, Yaakov?
Yeah, it was really cool. We didn't anticipate that we'd be able to get a hold of him. For anyone who knows Rabbi Bender, and even if you don't know Rabbi Bender, he's always busy saving Klal Yisrael, working on the yeshiva, revolutionizing the way the yeshiva system is, and he's doing so many amazing things, and you'll hear all about him and his life in this podcast. Welcome to the Meaningful People Podcast, the podcast where we talk to people who are
meaningful.
Yeah, that sounds good. Here we are with Rabbi Bender from Yeshiva Darchei Torah. Thanks for coming on, Rabbi Bender.
My pleasure. Talmud, what are you talking about?
Nachi,
of course. Who isn't a Talmud?
You're in Darchei for in elementary?
Nachi was always
I'm
a good
there,
kid.
yeah, I'm actually graduating third grade next year.
Nachi was always a good kid.
He wasn't a troublemaker at all?
At all, zero.
Really?
Got along with kids. Never, no, really, he behaved.
So I want to just deep dive into Rebbe's childhood. What was Rebbe's childhood like?
I had a wonderful childhood. I born the silver spoon. My father was Manal of Torah Das. Look at you or him.
You look again. At both of us.
Not again?
No, let's continue it. We're good.
Okay, I don't know. What do I know? Okay. My father was Manal of Torah Das. My mother was the first Beis Yaakov teacher in America.
Oh, wow.
They arrived here. My father was an American and went to learn in the Mir in Europe. And when they came back here, they arrived on Erev Yom Kippur, 1939. My mother found out she was going to be a teacher in Beis Yaakov, Motzai Yom Kippur. She arrived 10 minutes before Kol Nidre in Williamsburg. My father had to stay behind to sign paperwork, or give the paperwork, was Yom Kippur, and then he walked the next morning. And Motzai Yom Kippur, my mother gets a phone call that Rebbe Kaplan, who's the founder of Beis Yaakov, you're going to be the first teacher in the school. So I was born with chinuch in my blood, and I tried to emulate my parents. My father, unfortunately, was nifta very, very young, but my mother was around for many, many more years, and had a wonderful childhood. There's 5 wonderful siblings. We got along, Baruch Hashem, Bli Ayin Hara. One has passed away already, Reb Chaim Epstein's sister, wife. And it's really, I had a wonderful childhood until, of course, when the fateful day, and I was learning Philadelphia Yeshiva. I'd just gotten there 4 weeks before. Rishon Kamenetsky woke me up, and he said, you got to go to New York because your father is sick. My father was very close friends with both him and Rebbe Shvei.
How old were you at that time?
I was 15.
15,
and
wow.
I had to come back to New York to visit him.
Mm-hmm.
But I said, Rebbe Shvei and Shmuel Kamenetsky both accompanying me to visit him. It doesn't make sense, but you don't want to believe.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When we arrived at the subway station, everybody changes to go to Williamsburg, where I lived. I saw all my cousins there. So I knew they were coming for Levaya, so that's it. And then my brother-in-law, Reb Chaim Epstein, decided that I'm going to be the one to stay home with my mother. And I stayed with my mother for 8 years. I never went to the dormitory, except in the summers. My mother went to bungalow, so I would stay in the dormitory. And those 8 years were really wonderful years in retrospect. My mother was a world-class mechaneches. I learned a lot from her. She didn't sleep well. She was always sick. And she'd get up, and I would sit and talk to her and schmooze with her, which was really a bracha. And then, when I got married, of course, then my sister moved to New York, and she lived with my mother.
So that day that your father passed away, that really changed your entire life more than.
Of course, everything turns around upside down. First, we had no money.
Right.
My father barely made an income. You think mechanchim don't make money today? Then it was even worse. So there was no money then either. But then when he was nifter, so it was Social Security, my mother's check. And but we managed. My mother, there was a real simchas achayim in our family. People were happy. My mother did not let her personal tragedy get down on her. She really, really raised us in a happy way. And I only remember, I remember, of course, the Shiva and things like that. We had a robbery in our house the week of the Shiva.
Oh, my gosh.
We came down Friday night from upstairs. We had a downstairs, upstairs apartment. And we came down, and the house was ransacked totally. It wasn't geschmack. And I remember crying, and my mother came down. A lesson I never forgot. My mother came downstairs. We were all crying. We saw they ripped out that film. We felt there may have been even people who knew where they were going. I'm even Yavin. Oh. And it was a terrible feeling. We were in the middle of Shiva. My father was nifta Tuesday night, and Shabbos morning, and we were crying. My mother said she was a broken lady, my mother, but she said to us, Kendalach, was we can, I'll say in English, what you can replace with money, you're never ever to cry about. You can't replace your father. That you can cry about. This you can't cry about. And then we got up from Shiva, and it was time to go to Mir Yeshiva. And it was a scary time for me because I went to stay in New York. I had to change yeshivas. And I remember walking the first day to Mir Yeshiva. 400 people sitting. It was the heyday of Mir Yeshiva, really a special place. And 400 guys sitting there. I knew the Rebbe Brudny, Rebbe Brudny. Those are my friends. And I walked in there. Here I am. I remember the next night, I came home that night. I was miserable. I remember crying the whole night. My mother's the one who's nebuch. And I was crying all night. I said, Ma, I don't want to go there. I don't know anybody. I don't have friends, the usual. Well, he was listening. Don't worry. You'll be fine. It'll be okay. It's going to be fine. And then the next morning, it's a story I tell over, I got on the subway. And I wasn't a dummy. I studied the map to know where I get on, where I get off. Take one train across the Williamsburg Bridge, then one train. Then it was called the D train. It changed later on to the F train. And I'm going on the train. I studied the map. And I knew I'd get off on Kings Highway. And I fell asleep from exhaustion. I was up the whole night. And I woke up. I look out. The street says, this sign says Avon. I said, oh, Yankel. I said to myself, there's no Avon on your route. I said, I'm lost. I'm like, yes, that feeling. It's a lot of years. And I said, I'm lost. Great. I don't have to go to Yeshiva. Great. Really, what happened? And then train pulls out of Avon and pulls into Avenue P.
Oh.
I said,
not so lost.
Not so lost. Avon was too close to E in the end. It's Avenue N. And then Kings Highway, and I had to go to Yeshiva. I slept there. With time, I made friends. And Baruch Hashem, I'm here now.
What would you say is your mother seemed like a very strong person? What?
Not at all. She was soft like anything.
Wow.
My mother never ever, in those years, every father and mother used to patch to their kids. Mm-hmm. My mother never laid a finger on us. She would just say, Yankel, I'm disappointed in you, which was 5 times a day. No, kidding. But she said, I'm disappointed in you, and that was enough. And she never, ever laid a finger on us. She never. She was just a happy, she just... she lost a husband. She was a widow for longer than she was married. But she was always trying to make us happy and zufrieden. And she was just the sweetest lady in the world. She would never tell us, interesting thing, Yankel, we spoke Yiddish, Yankel, do this. Because she was afraid we wouldn't do it. It would be over the mitzvah of Kibbutz Yom. She said, Yankel, for example, I used to go visit her very, very often. Even when I was in Brooklyn, before I moved out to Far Rockaway, I used to go 4 or 5 times a week at night to visit her. She lived in Borough Park, and it was close. It wasn't like today going from Flatbush to Borough Park and me a major trying experience. So I used to go there at night, but when I moved to Far Rockaway, he still came 2-3 times a week. There's 2 ways of going, One is with the belt, and one is going through the Marine Park Bridge. And those years, the neighborhood was awful. My mother was nervous. She was a European with anxieties. Her parents died in the war. And so it was shorter to go to the Marine Park Bridge. Today, it's just as long because today you have a lot of traffic lights there. And I, of course, like going with the short way because I get home faster. And my mother would never say to me, Yankel, go the long way, because she's afraid I wouldn't do it. She'd say, Yankel, probably you're going to go the short way, right? Why? I shouldn't ever keep a name. She was very careful about that.
Wow.
But we had a tremendous respect for her.
Many people, know you. You're world renowned as a world class mechanech.
I'm infamous. Good.
Infamous. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But you also have some strong ties with the beginning of Hatzolah.
So I helped start Hatzolah in Flatbush and in Far Rockaway. It wasn't my goal to be a Hatzolah member forever because my life was getting involved in Torah and Yeshiva, but we needed it. And Herschel Weber, the founder of Hatzolah, dominant Mir Yeshiva. I was in Kelm Yeshiva right in front of me. He used to come every day to bring his father-in-law to Mincha Gedola. I had a friend, Moshe Gordon, very close friend, Moshe Gordon. He was a partner with Mr. Ploughton in Marina Del Rey, and we got on his case. Herschel, we need Hatzolah. So we started it, and as time went on, I gave her the job of running to other people, of course. But we started Hatzolah there, and then when I came to Far Rockaway, there was no Hatzolah here either. So together with Mr. Wolkowitz, Ocean View Nursing Home, we started Hatzolah in this neighborhood, Baruch Hashem.
To clarify, was there Hatzolah out of Flatbush, or the concept of
There was in Williamsburg, started I believe in 67 or 68, and then Crown Heights, Borough Park, those neighborhoods, east side, I believe, had it the next few years, and Flatbush started in 1973.
What does it feel like to look back and say, okay, you're trying to start it, and now it's we grew
Flatbush
up with
is
Hatzolah.
We don't know what it means not to have it.
Flatbush is the largest Hatzolah probably neighborhood that there is today. It's huge. It encompasses from Borough Park to Brighton, and from Bensonhurst all the way down to the upper 50s in Flatbush. It's a good feeling, but I don't think about it.
You don't think about every time the radio beeps and a Hatzolah member either here or in Flatbush that it's because of you?
I don't think about it. It wasn't because of me. I didn't help. I was a shliach, and I don't really feel. Once in a while, I think about it. But I remember when I left Flatbush, they made me a big retirement party. This
is not much of a retirement, knowing your schedule.
Yeah, right, but still, they made these. So they gave me my shirt called, it was F5. They made me a shirt, And but it's a good feeling when I sit and dwell on it. There's no time to dwell on anything. That's what I find my biggest problem is time. And so you move on. Next thing you got to do, right? So, sure, Flatbush Hatzolah, Far Rockaway Hatzolah, that was very, very special. Very, very special.
And you went...
My father had a heart attack, remember, in 1965. And you got to understand that that my father could be, well, there were no machshirim in those days. There were no kalim really. There was basically, you took a cardiogram. My father was for a year's time complaining a little bit of chest pains. Today they do all kinds of stress tests and so on and so forth. But when he had the heart attack, there was no defibrillator, there was nothing, and there was nothing they could do for him. I was away at the time, as I mentioned, I was in Philadelphia. So there was no Hatzolah. Hatzolah was started in 1967 in Williamsburg, where I lived.
Is that something that pushed you from the fact?
No, I don't think so. I think Herschel Weber davening right next to me. I knew Herschel well. Wonderful, wonderful person. And we pushed him, and that's what happened. We got 4 volunteers. Shmuel Birnbaum, who was Torah. It's all he wanted, right? He said, you got to do it. And ultimately, HaKadosh Baruch Hu saves lives. Hatzolah saved his life. Really, he was a second heart attack. If not for Hatzolah, who knows where he'd be today. There were 4 members of us. Zevi Trank was a Manal Now Masifta. Reb Shmuel Milstein was a Rebbe in Torah at the time. Reb David Pidman, the executive director of Yaakov 18th Avenue, and myself. We were the first 4 members of Hatzolah in Flatbush. And it was very special.
Then you crossed from Brooklyn to Far Rockaway at one
yes,
point. You took the way that your mother wanted you to take, I'm sure.
Less. I had to stop going on calls. My job was really, once there are people to do it, you got to do what you got to do. And I really pulled back on going on calls. Even in Far Rockaway, I never really went on any calls. I wanted to start it, make sure it happened, and give it over to people who have, let's say, don't have the time. You can't be the head of yeshiva and be busy running on calls. It's not shaykh.
So when you got to Darchei, you got there, you started as a 7th grade Rebbe?
7th grade Rebbe, yeah. 7th grade Rebbe. And Darchei was small, a little over 100 kids or something, and very Yiddish-speaking school. Later on, it changed over to English. But I came 7th grade Rebbe, and then they decided on a new manal for the coming year. And I was in the right place, I imagine, the right time, or,
How old were you at that point?
I was 29.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
29 years old, yeah.
And could you have ever imagined then what is now?
I think the Siyata Shemaya Darchei Torah had, I think it's only because we work with weak kids. I think because we work with weak kids, Hashem made us be successful. We never turned away a kid because he classically couldn't handle it, even behaviorally. And I think that's why I always say this when I'm up to chinuch yet here, you ask me questions about my background, but I would say that the greatest part of having a handicapped kid in the yeshiva or a kid is that other kids grow from it. We think we're doing a favor for the child who's handicapped. Rabbi Bender just passed away. People know about that. Rabbi Bender was a bracha for all the other kids because they took care of him. They grow in midos. It's a tremendous thing, and I really believe the reason why we had such success. B'lian her, the yeshiva is huge today. 8 parallel
started
classes.
when you said over a little over 100. Now you're.
I think it's Kanahara. It's such a it's just
8 parallel classes.
Kids, Baruch Hashem, B'lian her, very large yeshiva today, and we don't have room for a 9th class really. Even the new building that we just opened up 9 years ago, this says we have no room.
I think we could fit a class in here if we need to.
Do you ever get overwhelmed with everything with the yeshiva?
Sometimes financially could be sometimes overwhelming. Remember, we taken all kinds of kids. I don't think we have more than 30% full tuition. I would say most of the local yeshivas and day schools average between 16, 70, and 80 and 90% full tuition. We have 30% full to 32% full tuition, whatever the numbers are. You have to raise a lot of money. Our budget is around $34 million. We have to raise, I'd say, a good $10 million a year. And, so certain things are automatic. The dinner brings in a lot of money, but it's a lot of work to dinner. For 3 months, we're schlepping around, knocking on doors, which we all hate.
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, certain things that we get automatically every year. There's certain grants, but it's raising a lot of money. That part can be, when you were giving out a payroll, I could say something. I once said it to Rabbi Whiteman, Zachron Levracha. We never have money in the bank for our payroll. He looked at me like I was crazy. Every school gives out the payroll when you have the money in the bank. We give it out, and we hope, and then we work our heads off to make it so sometimes you got to cover the bank. It's not easy. So that's the overwhelming part. Lack of time. Now I focus heavily myself on the junior high and on the high school, and Beis Medrash Bacham need time, and I can't always give them that time. And that bothers me a little bit. That to me is not overwhelming, maybe, but it bothers me that I can't give people the time they deserve.
If you could have, an extra 2 months a year or an extra $20 million a year, which one would you opt
months,
for?
Really months.
The
time is critical, yeah. The money will come either way. Money will come. Hashem takes care of the money. No one knows. Yeshivas exist al pi nisim only. Al pi nes. Yeshivas don't work normal. It's not normal yeshivas. I remember when we built our building, this big building that we have, which is a $40-something million building. It's 4 separate buildings. But we built that, and people said, you're being fiscally irresponsible. What are you doing? And we were living in trailers. Lately, we decided we have to build a dormitory and another building for the Masifta because we have no room. And so one of the Balabatim was there in those days, he built the building, says, you're being fiscally responsible. I said, if it's up to you, we still be living in trailers. You got to take the plunge. You got to try. You have to have a chayiv, something that forces you to do the right thing. And that's what you got to do. You got to build. And Baruch Hashem, it's Siyat Tishmaya tremendously. I really give all the credit to the fact. The Iranians came out of Iran in 1979, 1980s, my second year in the yeshiva. We had a little 100 kids. And they had nowhere to go. We took in 30 kids tuition free. Now, most of them are from today. They came from homes that mostly were non-Orthodox homes. And we took him to, when I went to a meeting, and then Rabbi Nustat, he just passed away, said, what are we doing with all these kids with camp? We got to get them into camp in the summer. They were here with their parents. The Iranian kids who came here without parents went to Ner Yisrael in Baltimore. Those with families were all in public school. And I said, I made a deal, Aguda was involved. I said, we'll take in 30 kids, but somebody else pays for the busing. And for 1 week, somebody else paid for the busing. And then we paid for the busing. And that was it. And 30 kids, but most of them are from today. A number of them have their own kids in yeshiva today. When you do that, you see your products in this world. You really do.
It seems like Darchei was, back then to now, it transitioned a lot. It obviously grew a lot, but also I guess the direction of the yeshiva was a little different. I don't think you have so many Iranians coming in.
No,
today.
the Iranians at that time, we had room. It was a small yeshiva. We had room. Today also, the yeshiva, I think, has not veered much from its original goals. Building a Torah true yeshiva, preparing kids well, L'mudei Kodesh, L'mudei Chol. We have kids learning in Brisk, and we have kids going to Harvard Law School. Now they've gone, after they learned today with the degrees that we give, so Bacha can learn in Besmedrish and then go to Israel, come back, get married, go back for Koil, and then go to Harvard Law School or Columbia. And then, of course, you have City Baruch in Lakewood, a huge amount of boys in Lakewood. And they do well, Baruch Hashem. We have a wonderful alumni association. Moshe Ben Alul runs it, but it's really wonderful. I think that we stay close. We have get-togethers all the time. And the alumni, I think ultimately the alumni will be our biggest supporters, because we try to be nice to the kids, and they know it.
As a Rosh Yeshiva, what's the biggest nachas you could get from a former Talmud?
When they build their own families and they come with their kids to visit, come on. You can't, some of these kids, look, we have a vocational program, which I don't think any yeshiva has. Within a regular yeshiva, we have a vocational program. Those kids, they go to high school and take APs, fine. These kids, there are kids that couldn't read or write and are successful plumbers and contractors and electricians and opticians, and they're making a living, and they donate money to the yeshiva. And they really couldn't do anything. And the vocational program was a tremendous nachas ruach for me. Tremendous. These are kids that would not have made it. Now it's such a good program that the Aleph Plus kids want to learn trades also. They like their hands-on. They build shtenders. They build a bathroom every year.
I think from my time, when I was in Darchei as a kid, I think there's more than one, or maybe a few, even in town, companies that were started from kids that were in the vocational program, like electricians, plumbers, that started actual companies.
We have kids that couldn't read or write and are running major buildings in Manhattan.
Whose idea was that to do that? Like, it's in my head, a yeshiva and teaching a trade. It doesn't really go together, but it makes perfect sense.
With the whole part of the day, they come to yeshiva with the same white shirt, the same black hat by davening, in the afternoon they go into.
But there is a mindset of Torah.
So
right?
what? But these kids got to, instead of going to secular studies, they learn regular English writing skills, what's called business math. Insurance plans they know, and instead of going secular studies, they come back for night seder at night. And it's wonderful. The reason why it's successful is because they're integrated in a regular yeshiva. Maybe people always come to me, they want to make a vacation program in a separate building. Mayor Bloomberg came to visit us once, and he was out of his mind. He enjoyed it so much. He says, the entire public school system does not have that, he told me. He says, they have separate schools for all these kids. They're the dropouts, the chayas. And he says, you have them within the regular school. That's the success of it. And so many of them. We had a boy in the 9th grade. I can't tell you how nutty he was. Mama's a nutty kid. He's today a major Maggid Shir today. Major Maggid Shir. He had to learn how to behave, and we worked with him. That's nachas. Kids like that, the vocational program is a wonderful, wonderful program. Really is. Special program.
So how do you, it obviously has to start from the top down, but for the Rebbeim and all the faculty and the staff of Darchei need to have that patience with their students.
The Rebbeim are wonderful. The Rebbeim are young, vibrant, dynamic Rebbeim. Not that older Rebbeim aren't good either. We have some older Rebbeim that are fantastic. But they're on board. We try to treat them very well. We treat them well. If a Rebbe wants to take a break of a few days, I said, fine. No problem. He has to go to Israel. I tell him 3 days, go. Else he can't go. What do you think? He works the summer. He has a job again teaching. And wherever they go, there's no time. They work 6 days a week. treat them well. They're wonderful people, the Rebbeim. I look at them as Marbitzei Torah. So we try to treat them well, and they're really on board.
Darchei Torah is really known to go above and beyond for the Rebbeim.
I don't know of a Rebbe that ever left to another school except to become a principal. We have at least 5 Rebbeim who became Menalim. They left. I don't know of another Rebbe in all the years, in 40 years in Darchei. I remember a single Rebbe leaving to another yeshiva to be a Rebbe. Right? Mordechai Finkel was a Rebbe, became Mashgiach in Arachayim. We have different people that became Menalim, but...
like what Nachi is saying, Darchei Torah is known for, helping the Rabbeim a little bit for Yantif, or getting them, discounts in the community.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that it should be a principle in all yeshivas, or
for sure taking care of Rebbeim? Do I think I would like, Chazdei Lev is a great organization, right? I'm waiting for the day that a Rebbe gets paid $300,000. He doesn't have to. We don't have to do many favors and get him bargains, of course. But right now we got to help him. I like a Rebbe to be treated like a king. I always say, we have deals with stores. I have one request from the store person who owns the store: treat them like they're a millionaire. When they come into you, don't treat them like you're doing them a favor because you're giving a discount. Treat them like they're zillionaires and you want their business. And so, of course, it's wonderful. We do all these programs, but one day, when the people out there will understand that Rebbeim are the most important part of their life, that they're teaching your kids Torah. So you'll pay them accordingly. We try to pay well, but well is not anywhere near. And then you'll tell me a lot of people out there don't make money. In general, true, but we got to treat our Rebbeim, I think, on a high level.
You mentioned before Torah, that's what Representative Shmuel Birnbaum.
Correct.
He was your Rebbe.
Correct.
Did he have a big influence on what Darchei Torah looks like today, would you say?
He used to come. He used to come visit and give a shmooze. When we had elementary school, he'd do that also. He'd speak just for the junior high. And then he came later on to give shiurim all the time. He was very proud of Darchei Torah. He was very, very proud. He had an influence in the sense that, the idea of Torah being supreme is what he hacked into us. A number of us who came early to the yeshiva, like Rabbi Zevi Trank and Moshe Krasnow, people who were there a long time, they were Talmidim of Rishul Birnbaum. He drilled into us. I'll give you a dogma. I'll never forget the story. One day, my mother called me that my sister, Rebbe Shapiro, lives in Lakewood, was moving. And her husband's not really in that parsha. He's a world-class masfid. And she suggested my mother, maybe my brother Shmuel Shalom, who was then learning Yeshiva, so we'll go down to Lakewood and help him move. So of course we went. We left Yeshiva in the afternoon, and we worked all night. We brought boxes, and she's moving the next morning. And we moved her, and we were back in Yeshiva, right, the next morning on time. And we moved. And then Shmuel Birnbaum would never, I was married already then, would never ask a younger man, where were you? He treated younger light with a certain dignity. But my brother Shmuel was in a shir. Anyways, I went to the back to get a sefer at 5:30 in the afternoon. Second sefer was very long and late. And I went to pick up a sefer. Shmuel jumps out of his seat. He says, "Oh, Rabbi Yaakov." He called us Rebbe the day we got married. Your heart isn't given in Lakewood. I heard you were in Lakewood. I said, yeah. I saw with his smile, the way he was, curving his smile, he's going to get me. He says, well, so you went to Lakewood probably to hear Reb Shnei as a shir, right? Reb Shnei Kotler, Rosh Yeshiva then. I said, no, Rebbe, I keep it back. I told him, if I would have known he's giving you shir, you would have told me, I would have gone to the shir. So he says, why then you go to Lakewood? I said, something was wrong. He says, I said, my mother suggested maybe, so we had to help her move. And he says, Seder? And he's beating me up. Like, he heard from my brother, you understand? My brother Shalom, he asked him where he was. He was very, very strong. So I said, Seder? I said, Rebbe, come on. And he's beating me. My sister, she's moving. What do you want me to do? Finally, I said to him, Rebbe, what would you do? He lost his entire family in the Holocaust. I said, what if you would went through the same thing? Your mother calls you. What would you do? Looks at me, he doesn't answer me. I said, wow, I won. First time. First time I won. And I walked away. I went back to my Chavrusam with Yankel Bergman, the Rebbe in Shara Torah in Queens. I said, this is what happened. 5 months later, I had a job in a camp. Rabbi Trank and I, we were head counselor and learning director together in the camp. Camp Narim was called. And we were there, and a Bacher got married on Beis El. Shmuel Birnbaum came over to me all the time. He sent his kids to our camp. He knew the camp ended that year very, very late. And he said to me, so he gave me Rishus, because I made money in the camp to be able to sit all year in Kail. So he gave me full Rishus, and he knew I'm going into chinuch one day also. So he felt that's a strong way of practicing. Anyways, I'll make a long story. So I'll make it short. What happened was he comes over to me. So by the way, he makes a beeline right for me. So no. He comes, Rabbi Yaakov, he says to me, it's Beis, you're back so late? I said, this is something funny. He knows his kids are in camp. I said, Rebbe, I'm going back. I won't be back for another week. What's Chatya? What's Seder? What are you talking about? What's Seder? I said, Rebbe, I'm the head counselor. I'm running the camp. I can't just leave. You darf them a substitute. You got to take a substitute. I said, Rebbe, you had counselor end of the summer. No one could do your job? That means you wouldn't leave for anything in the world, right? I said, no, Rebbe, I can't leave. So I want to see just one question. What if your mother calls you up and says, help your sister, would you leave camp? Wow.
He got you back. I guess he won.
Back. I said, Rebbe, white flag. He put that story in his back pocket. You versteht? Now you understand? Chaim Shalom. Further, I'll see you in a week. Go back to camp. So he taught us to know at least what's primary in our life.
If you could ask him one question today, maybe some direction or some shaila you have, what would you ask him?
Chinuch Abanim, I would speak to him about. I spoke a lot to him and Rebbe Yishvei and Rapam. Those are the three people.
And when you say Chinuch Abanim, what more specifically?
There are specific cases sometimes. What overrides, what parents are not cooperative. Sometimes I find parents generally to be very cooperative. I think parents are talking about their own kids sometimes. So their own kid needs something, they want that thing. But there are 25 sets of needs in a classroom. If, parents, how do you deal with a parent like this? How do you deal with a child who doesn't? Can you throw out a kid from school? That's a very important question. Maran Leib Steinman told me you're never allowed to throw out a kid from yeshiva. Rabbi Yashiv told me once, he said, if he's a mafriya, if he hurts other kids, then... So a question like that is a very important question. There's questions every day in chinuch. If you really put your mind to it, there's questions every single day.
So what do you do to answer them?
So by this time you get a certain amount of experience, and then if you have to, you talk it over with someone.
Transitioning a bit, but what do you think? Which area in Yiddishkeit do you think could use the most work now?
I think technology is the biggest challenge we all have. Technology is a tremendous challenge. It does when we feel. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. Just when we feel.
It's ironic that you're looking at your phone during this.
You know why? It's very funny, but I have to know my granddaughter is becoming a Kala, and I'm waiting for Maishi to tell me, and he just told me, Maishi Bender, that his daughter just became a Kala.
Wow.
I'm sitting here with two guys over here, like it's unbelievable, and they're making a simcha over there, they're all dancing away, and I'm sitting here.
The follow-up question to this will be that you're so busy all the time. But
technology is they change it all the time. For example, we push them on filters. Then we found out now, I don't even know what WhatsApp is. I don't have it on my phone. I don't have any of the stuff on my phone. So so WhatsApp, I can send you a full-length film, X-rated film, and the filter won't stop it.
Right.
There's something called, I found out more. There's something called Telegram. Same thing. So you can have the greatest filters in the world. So every day we come up with an idea for something, and they outsmart us. And it's a never-ending battle. It's a tremendous battle, and we have no choice. We do our best.
You're known for trying to be very involved in the community. That if you have a simcha to go to, I mean, like
even a granddaughter,
just even anyone who went to Darchei, or if you have to be Menachem Mavel, in one night you could go to Menachem Mavel for three people, go to two weddings.
I think it's very important. I think it's important to remember. I don't want to sound haughty now, but I have to remember how important I am. So I'm the head of a yeshiva. When I walk into the Menachem Mavel, it means something to the people. So it means something to anybody goes. People are sitting shiva, you go in, you pay respect. So sometimes there are many weddings, of course. So during the week, I'm not home. But Shabbos is the day, But I call my wife. What?
No Shalom Zachar?
I don't go Shalom Zachar Friday night unless it's on my block. Then it's a din in the block. It's a din in the block. It's neighbors. It's a din of good neighbors. Shachan Tov. But I don't go Shalom Zachar. I don't go Kiddushim on Shabbos. Bar Mitzvahs. I don't go. I was coming home 4:00. My wife, come on, one day a week. Right. So people say, your kids are all out of the house. So what? My wife is home. Well, your wife counts. You have to work on your marriage your whole life. People think getting married, I have behind her, I think, a wonderful marriage, but I don't forget that I have a wife at home. She's extremely kind to me. She lets me do my own thing. She does. And she's very, very special. But I think that I can't go to these things on Shabbat. But during the week,
how do you balance? How do you balance all that with family life? How do you find that balance?
When I'm home with my kids, again, my kids are married now, Baruch Hashem, but my grandchildren are, right? I do yeshiva on Tuesdays. I have a lot of grandchildren in the yeshiva. Every Tuesday, 1:00, my grandchildren come to my office. And I give them soda and candies, junk. I spoil them. But I spend time with them. It's wonderful. I'll send them with some dollars to the canteen very often. There's a canteen, which some of the young ones are not allowed to go to, but, I'll give them now to go to the canteen. I try to make it, I can use an analogy maybe. There are divorced parents, fathers. What do? They know the day they have to give the kids time. So I try to make quality time. I don't bring the phone to the table. Leave your phone. I say, leave your phone by the door with your keys. Go to the table, talk to your wife and to your children. I get very upset if people sit with their phones. I once had a couple having some shalom bayis issues, so they finally went out together to eat somewhere. And then somebody told me they met him there, right? And they were sitting and each texting themselves their own phones. They weren't talking to each other. When I come home at night, it's my wife, it's the children, it's the grandchildren. Focus on them. I think the phones, not just to me, phones are a problem because of not good things on phones. The social media is idiotic. People are jumping forever to answer silly questions. I have to know what you ate for supper. Narishkeit and social media is terrible, and it robs time. When I see ladies walking down Reed's Lane, they have the kids in the stroller, and they're talking on the phone. Stop it. These are magic times, pushing your kid. You're going to regret it one day. Spend time with your children. So leave that phone out of the house. It's very annoying to a wife. A husband comes home, boom, he's on the phone already. It shouldn't be.
Unfortunately, there has been a rise in the divorce rate and just around the world.
I'm not sure it's as bad as people make it out to be.
Do you think it's hyped up more than it is?
When we were kids, there were no divorces. I speak to people my age. More. And people stay together even if they didn't get along. Today,
because it was a taboo, I guess.
But I find people say it's 20%, 30%. That's not true. And now yeshiva, it's 3.5% to 4% of the yeshiva. I think we have a very good cross section of people, and it's not anywhere near what people think it is.
Why do you think is it happening? Because it's not a good shidduch, or people aren't working as hard?
I can't answer that question. One thing's for sure, people sometimes do not care. They'll overrule. I gotta have a good life, and the kids are not as important. When you stay together, because I know people who didn't have a good marriage, they stayed together because of their children until the children were married. That's a bracha. They have good kids. I think if there's friction in the home, it's not good either. Neither one is good. But so some people can't listen. There's a parsha. I know a couple once went through a Moshe Feinstein, and they were crying. The kids are getting divorced. He said, "There's a parsha getting it there. You got to use it sometimes." But I think sometimes people they put themselves ahead of their children. I think that shouldn't happen.
It's known, and I was probably a good convention. This was alluded to, but it's known that you used to be a big sports fan. Do you still? I used
to be a sports fan as a kid.
Do you still get excited when you hear?
Excited is too strong a word. I imagine when the Yankees win, I feel good about it. They say, "Right, Scheinberg, Zecharna Levracha." When he came to America, here the Yankees won. So remember, when we were kids, there was nothing else but sports. There was nothing else. Sports, yes, sports. But today, no. If I get excited with the Yankees, then I'm in trouble.
I think I remember there was maybe you and Rabbi Bender were once watching the World Series.
Everybody in kids, when they were young, everybody when they were kids was sports fans. Everybody. And everybody means everybody. A lot of people, all my friends, a lot of them. Not everybody. There were some who weren't, but it was very commonplace. But we all outgrew it. For sure.
Do you like that the sports outlet, or?
I tell people don't cry over it. My father did a very smart thing. My father's Colonel Levracha was a real Erlich Yid, but on Sunday nights, everybody had TVs in those days. It was a shtickle bracha, you could say, for the Holocaust survivors, who were really broken, a lot of them, and it was an escape for them. When they watched television. But also television then was not what it is today. But my father would allow us once a week to go watch TV for a few hours, because he was afraid we'd go on our own and watch things we shouldn't be watching. I allowed my kids on Sunday. You see, it's hard to say over today, because when I came to Far Rockaway, everybody had TVs. Most people had televisions in Far Rockaway.
Now a lot don't.
And a lot don't. In those days, computers replaced it somewhat.
Yeah.
But, so I allowed my kids to watch a baseball game. I told them to watch the commercials, and they were good about it. They didn't go looking for junk then. So you got to use good seichel. If you're going to block off your kid from everything, today also, if you want to play a game on a computer, let him. Who doesn't have a computer today? Come on, everybody. I mean, internet is a whole different ballgame. But on the other hand, the whole world's relying on email today. So you almost can't go without email today. Some people do, they manage. But I think if you ban everything from kids, that's not a smart thing.
Talking about your family, I was once in your house and I saw a family photo, and there's something, someone there that I wouldn't.
We have an adopted son, an African-American boy. He was in Yeshiva Talmud. It's a long story. It'll take up another half hour. But he couldn't stay with his adopted family, and we ended up adopting him. What a bracha it was. Bracha for our family. He's a regular kid in the family. Of course, we walked him out to the chuppah, and we come for Shabbos to him and him to us, and for our own kids. They grew from it. It's a long story how it happened. That's not important, I think, for this. But he's a wonderful, wonderful guy, and he married a wonderful white girl and has 6 wonderful kids, and they're sitting and learning, and they're just wonderful. What can I tell you? The nachas ruach we have from it. It's wonderful.
And so, you treat like he's your son. It's not even like
absolutely.
And those are your grandkids.
Tati, yeah. My first grandchildren were from him. And we regular financially, everything we give for our regular kids, we give to him. He's working nice. He has a nice job today. But he's a regular kid. It's wonderful. Again, it's a separate, whole long story. I'm not
It's
sure
for the next time we have you on the
I'm not sure.
podcast.
Some of it might be a little bit like, I'm not sure.
Right. Could be a little
Maybe
too
a little bit
personal.
private, some things,
Right.
but it's a bracha. If our own kids saw, we take a kid into the house, right? Come on. What a bracha.
Was it hard at the time? I mean, just adopting is
Maishi,
not,
my son
it's a little
Maishi,
scary
whose
sometimes.
daughter became a colonel. My son Maishi, Blian Hara, and Yuri Gordon, Mrs. Gordon works in my office, remember?
Yeah.
They were both in his class. They were very makar of him. So this boy used to come to our house all the time, right? And so once they knew him already, he used to hang out in our house a lot. Later on, we ended up adopting him, and it was a tremendous thing. So Maishi and Yuri Gordon were his best friends. And so it's a very, very big bracha.
Rebbe talks about a regular Joe Schmo on the street often. A regular Joe Schmo, or someone who identifies as a regular Joe Schmo, like there's a person on the street. He feels like he's like, I'm not a Rav. I'm not a Rav. I'm a regular.
So
I'm a
what?
regular Yid. So the question is, someone listening to this, what could they do?
Every Erlich Yid is special. You got to believe that. I tell this to the Rebbe and to the people in school all the time. Every Erlich Yid, giving up so much to be from. We forget what we're giving up. I once had a story on Shabbos. We were going to Stamford, Connecticut. It was the greatest Shabbos of my life. Looking back now, but then it wasn't fun. About 20 years ago, my nephew got married. He had an Ufruf. My brother Michael, who lives now in Muncie, works at the Stanford Yeshiva, and we were going there, and there was a massive snowstorm. 12 cars left Lakewood in New York to go to the Simcha, right? And only 4 arrived on time. We had to get off the highway, exit 5 on the Connecticut, the Turnpike, and we got off the highway and we knocked on somebody's door. I remember the story vividly. I went to somebody's door. There's a lady, a Spanish lady, answered the door. I tried to explain what I said, Shabbat. She didn't know what I was talking about. I said, we have to come in for it. She said, fine. She let us in. She saw we're not going to make trouble. I had my son Chaim Meiser with me, and he was then, I think, 4 years old. And so it's about 25 years ago, the story, and my wife. And the first thing we said was, 2 minutes of Shkia, do you have 2 candles for us? Candles for us. She brought out 2 purple candles, incense, and she lit them. And then it was very shkia. We couldn't bring in the stuff from the car, so we said, could we bring in our things from the car? We don't say it. You bring it. Says he shouldn't tell him straight. She said, oh, you could bring in your stuff. I said, we're not allowed to. So she went outside, brought in our luggage, and we hoped to change. And then it didn't make sense to change even because the walk back to the Simcha was an hour and a half in a howling snowstorm. It was something unbelievable, really. And we left early enough to make it with lots of time. Maybe with Waze, it would have been better. Maybe it could be. Anyways, so what happened was that so she brought in the luggage. Then we said, "Do you have a facility?" She says, "Yeah, the bathroom over here." Says the light. Oh, here's the switch. I said, "We can't turn on the switch." And then I said, and then there was toilet paper. Excuse me. So she says, "There it is." I said, "No, we can't cut it, even though the evidence is this." And then finally we got dressed and we got in the car. We said, could you show us how to go, directions to walk? It was over an hour walk. She said, sure, here's a pen and paper. I said afterwards, I said, we don't realize what we sacrifice to be Erlich Yidin. We take it for granted. We walked that hour and a half, almost an hour and a half. We walked, we got there drenched and soaked. I look back now at that Shabbos, wow. I gave away a lot for Shabbos. We feel good about it. So every Jew is giving away, they're paying tuition. They're doing everything. Every single Yid in Klal Yisrael is doing so much. So every Yid counts. They're big, the chashva people.
Is there a moment in your life that you could turn back to and say, wow, like this was a turning point in your life that inspired you and set you on the track that you ended up going on to?
I think my father's patira was a major wake-up call. So for a while I was very unhappy, miserable, because I left Philadelphia, was Harvard then. Getting to Philadelphia was, still a very great yeshiva. And then I learned how to feel for my mother and do it. That's, I think, the major changing time in my life. I became a Pirchei leader. I needed something. I needed an outlet. So I became a Pirchei leader. I had a lot of kids coming to my group on Shabbos. And so the major thing, change around my life, I think major change was my father's patira. It changed our whole life. I remember my mother was always sick, and she was always sweating, and we went to get her air conditioner. We had not a penny to our names. I went delivering meat by a butcher for 10 cents a delivery, busting a butcher on Lee Avenue, so we could help buy an air conditioner for my mother. And I liked that because I stepped in the same room as my mother, so it was very good. I got the air conditioning also. But it was one of that. It was just really so being with her, and it changed my whole life.
You speak a lot about that, about always in yeshiva, about how kids should treat Yisayimim and how
obviously, I see that. Would I have been different? Probably. I was a Yassim, but I talk a lot about that. I remember my father gave his shmuz just before he was nifty. He spoke about a Yassim, the pain. There were a lot of Yisayimim then because of the war. People came out and survived, but then they died. And I remember my father saying, he said the following. He said, imagine, what's a yasam like? He says, imagine you slap somebody on the hand, right? It hurts. What if he has a deep cut? It hurts more. This is true about every yasam. When you hurt a yasam, you're hitting him on his cut. And I think there's so much, you become a better person when you think about almanas and Yisayimim. They're alone. They're coming home at night to an empty house. So of course, so the fact that I was yassin did help. I'm sure it did. Doesn't mean that my father had to die for that. Right. But so I think it's a very important thing.
What's something? Everyone has some pet peeve in some way. What is Rebbe's pet peeve? It could be in Yiddishkeit. It could be just a natural. Someone honks too much when they drive. What would you say is something that bothers you?
I think the rushing of people, not to stop to think about life. We're rushing in America constantly. We're doing so many things. Stop to think about what you have. I call it, this now, count your blessings. Yeah. We have so many blessings, and we're so busy complaining. We want more. The luxuries that we have, the fancy, everything is fancy. Stop for a minute. You have a wife and kids, but people wouldn't pay to have a child. People who don't have kids, people who have all kinds of problems. My pet peeve to myself is I say to people, this is what you're complaining about. You're not embarrassed. This is what you're complaining about. Look what you have. We have so much, Baruch Hashem. What a life we have. Look what the people, the Holocaust survivors built. They came here losing their fathers, their mothers, their brothers, their sisters, their uncles, the aunts. They came here and they built our infrastructure. Look what they did for us. And they lost everything in the world. These people, they're dying now. There's very few left of them. So you're complaining about this is your problem in life? Dial Tzara b'shait, everything in its own time is a problem, but come on,
We definitely appreciate you taking out the time in your busy schedule. I know it's not easy.
I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, we did too.
But now I got my house to worry about. I'm running back to Mazel Tov to my granddaughter, and I'm very excited to be here. And you should continue that tzlacha. What you're doing now is magnificent. The meaningful moment is really, I sometimes feel bad. I can't get to it every day, but it's really wonderful.
Thank you.
And that I could participate and help in my own small way is a big bracha.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful night, okay?
Yeah, you too.
What a fun episode. That was really nice. Really, yeah, I don't have to tell you what it was. Like, you guys could tell us what it was in the comments, and liking this podcast and sharing it with your friends. That really helps us a lot. If you're watching it on YouTube, please subscribe. Nachi, what do you think about this episode?
I liked it. It was very Rabbi Bender. It was hard to get him, for I don't know how long, 45 minutes. He's constantly on the move. Something that maybe you guys didn't know, or now you will, is that his granddaughter got engaged literally in the middle of the podcast. I think maybe he alluded to it or he didn't, but his phone was next to him, and it was someone that kept texting him, and literally his granddaughter got engaged. So Mazel Tov, like 3 months ago, granddaughter. That
is very true, and he was. Yeah, Mazel Tov to that. And Mazel Tov to Nachi and his wife. They actually had a baby. They had a baby girl, Rosie, so Mazel Tov on that. And I think it's very apropos because, maybe Rosie's going to marry a Darchei guy down the line. Who knows?
I'm not going to rule anything out, but chances are, who knows? There's so many of them out there, but I appreciate it. And Mirz Hashem, our next episode, guys, we'll be back in the office. Obviously, we've been doing these intros and outros. If you're listening or watching, our audio and our video is not as good. But hopefully we'll be back soon in our office, in our headquarters, and you'll be able to see us better or hear us better.
Thanks so much, guys. Enjoy. And like we always say, we don't have to say it. Hashem is the best.
The best.
Hashem is the best in every way.